Holy Khajiit! Did you know that Skyrim has been released no less than 15 separate times? Between the original release, Legendary Edition, Special Edition, the Very Special Edition, Skyrim VR, and the Anniversary Edition, Skyrim has managed to stay relevant since its initial release all the way back in 2011. While there are a ton of things that have given Skyrim its staying power, the one that always helped me justify burning more of my paycheck on a new version was the leveling system. From the minute I narrowly avoided getting my head chopped off in Helgen until my final battle with Alduin, Skyrim made developing my character into the all-powerful Dragonborn engaging, and actually taught me how to develop my own skills along the way. This is what I learned playing Skyrim. For those of you who've spent even a few hours wandering around Skyrim, you probably noticed its leveling system is pretty unique. Unlike other games that level up your skills randomly or have you assign the skill points yourself, Skyrim's approach to leveling your character is much more organic and rewards you for using the skills you want to improve. Do you want to be a master thief? Great, start picking some locks. Want to be a sneaky archer? Fantastic, just crouch and land some headshots. Heck, you can even be a renowned blacksmith if you put enough time in at the forge. Whether it intended to or not, Skyrim's leveling system is reflective of a real-world model of skill development called 70-20-10. What's the 70-20-10 model, you ask? Well, let's say you're the Dragonborn and you want to learn how to use a one-handed sword better. The 70-20-10 model suggests you split your sword development into 3 disproportionate pieces of the proverbial learning pie. 70% of your development should be in experiential learning, 20% social learning, and finally the last 10% in structured learning. And that's where the name 70-20-10 comes from. See what they did there? So let's take some time to explore what that looks like for not only the Dragonborn, but yourself too. It may seem counterintuitive, but I wanted to start with the 10% of structured learning because, as the smallest piece of the overall pie, some people may underestimate its importance. I'm going to generalize a bit when defining structured learning, especially since there aren't many courses or keynote speakers to be found around Skyrim. When you think of structured learning, think of formal courses or educational programs that are designed with specific learning outcomes for you. They can feel a bit one-directional in communication at times and don't leave as many opportunities to directly engage, but they are designed to help build a foundation for the rest of your skill building. Even my What I Learned Playing videos would count as structured learning because I'm trying to teach skills in a relatively structured way. The reason these learning opportunities are so important when it comes to developing a new skill is because the 10% of structured learning can actually amplify the other 90% of the 70-20-10 model. So where do we see structured learning in Skyrim? Well, the best equivalent to structured learning in Skyrim are the skill books that can be found scattered across the map. There are a total of 90 usable skill books in the game, 5 different books for each of the 18 skills. And when the Dragonborn reads one, it permanently increases one of their skills by a single point. So when the Dragonborn finds the book Mace Etiquette, their one-handed skill will increase by 1. When you start a new game, most of the Dragonborn skills start at 15 and will max out at 100, meaning each individual skill can be increased a whopping 85 times. And since there are only 5 different books per skill, and each one increases said skill by 1 point, skill books account for 5 of the 85 potential skill points. So, if the Dragonborn can increase a skill 85 times, and there are 5 books for each skill, you take 5 skill books, divided by 85 total skill points, and find that skill books, also known as structured learning, account for about 6% of the Dragonborn skill development. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, Eric, you said structured learning should account for 10%, and the math you just did only shows 6. What's the deal? Well, the cool thing about the 70-20-10 model is that it isn't a completely rigid model, meaning that the percentages work more as guidelines rather than strictly enforced requirements. So the fact that the Dragonborn only has 6% of their development from structured learning is actually great, because you learn more by doing the actual skill. There's absolutely no way the Dragonborn would be able to defeat Alduin if he only read books about how to swing a sword, which is why the 70% and the 20% are so valuable when it comes to developing a skill. After the Dragonborn has their morning read and mead, it's time to go adventuring. However, after stumbling across an outpost and getting launched into orbit by a giant for the 15th time, they may realize they need someone to help prepare them for the unforgiving wilds of Skyrim. That's where the 20% of social learning comes in. The general premise of social learning is to learn through your interactions with and observation of others, and that can take a number of forms. Most commonly, this aspect of social learning is enabled by finding a mentor. During your travels across Skyrim, you'll be lucky enough to find mentors in the form of skill trainers. These skill trainers do exactly what you'd expect: train you to develop a specific skill for a price. While it may feel a bit transactional, especially when you hear the ka-ching of the gold leaving your pocket, followed directly by your experience bar filling up, what Skyrim doesn't show you is the feedback and coaching the skill trainer is giving the Dragonborn off screen in order to enable their skill development. There is a catch though. You can only train 5 times per level, and not every skill trainer will be able to help you depending on their personal skill proficiency. So, if the Dragonborn's one-handed skill is at 70, they won't be able to learn anything from an adept skill trainer. That doesn't mean they're a bad mentor, but you're just asking for something that's beyond their skill level, which can happen in real life too. So now it's time for an installment of really general and assumptive math time, where I do some math that's technically correct, but operates off of a few assumptions. Here we go. Let's break down the Dragonborn social learning. If you can only train 5 times per level, and the Dragonborn's soft level cap is 80, you can train a maximum of 400 times. With there being a total of 1,530 skill increases available in the entire game, that's 85 skill increases multiplied by the 18 available skills, the Dragonborn's maximum social learning development potential is 26%. However, that math assumes 1, players will skill train 5 times every level, and 2, they're planning on maxing out all 18 skills to 100. It's safe to say that isn't the reality for most players, but what it does show is the maximum amount of social learning in Skyrim closely aligns with the 70-20-10 model. One last thing about skill trainers. There are no trainers who can develop the Dragonborn skills past 90, which means no matter how much they use a mentor, they need to cross the finish line themselves. That's where the final 70% of skill development, experiential learning, comes in. We are finally here, on the home stretch of the 70-20-10 model, talking about the 70% of experiential learning, the biggest and best piece of the skill development pie, and coincidentally, the core of Skyrim's leveling system. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, Skyrim has a unique leveling system where the Dragonborn skills increase based on their usage. However, it's a little more complex than that. Here's what I gathered from the official Skyrim strategy guide. Skyrim uses a system that tracks the actions you perform and increases your skills accordingly. Each of the 18 skills is watching for a particular event to occur in-game. When the required number of events occurs, the skill will increase. To put that into layman's terms, just running around Whiterun talking to everyone you see won't improve your speech skill. The events the game is looking for are when you buy and sell items or pass dialogue checks. You don't get any extra experience for having conversations about supporting the Greymanes or the Battleborns. It all comes down to actually using this skill, which is exactly what experiential learning is, learning by doing. All of the Dragonborn skills increase as they're done correctly. However, some skills can increase by just attempting to use them. Take lockpicking for example, which increases even after you break your 5th lockpick trying to finesse your way into a locked chest. If you've ever picked a lock in Skyrim, you know exactly how that feels. Maybe you turned the lock a little too fast, or didn't have it lined up in the correct position. Either way, you learned from that mistake, and on your next attempt, you adjusted, popped that treasure chest open, and claimed those spoils as your own. The attempts you made to open the chest, even though they initially failed, helped you develop your lockpicking skill because you learned from what you were doing wrong and made the changes needed to be successful. Let's pause on that revelation for a second, because I want you to hear it again, especially since it applies to your real-world development too. You develop skills by attempting to do them, and failure is an essential part of the skill development process. That's why the 70-20-10 model weighs experiential learning so heavily, because you're not only learning by doing, but you're also learning by failing. And I use that term lightly. But that's the cool thing about Skyrim. It shows the value of experiential learning when trying to develop your skills. While the 70% of the 70-20-10 model is extremely important to skill development, the true value is using all 3 pieces together. And Skyrim's leveling system is a perfect example of that. The combination of structured skill book reading, learning from others via skill trainers, and the experiential learning from using your favorite skills creates a leveling system that demonstrates the value the 70-20-10 model brings to skill development. So next time you want to develop a skill, just ask yourself, what would the Dragonborn do? And that's it! Do you have a cool example of how you've developed a skill using one of the pieces of the 70-20-10 model? If you do, share it with me down in the comments, and make sure to leave a suggestion for what topic you want me to cover next while you're down there. If you really liked what you saw today, I'd love it if you subscribed. See you around!